Okay.
And also learn.
Welcome, Vikash. They have let in the delegates. We are ready to start. So, Chart, you can let us in.
Yeah, delegates are starting to come in, and then I'm going to switch over to the video.
Okay. Welcome, Vikash.
Good afternoon, Nomvula, and good afternoon, colleagues and the Minister.
Good afternoon. Hello.
Good afternoon, all. I think we're waiting for our president, Nomvula. Is Anthony on?
Okay, Anthony disconnected. I think he will sign in shortly.
Okay. Without delaying, Nomvula, do you want to go ahead just to give Anthony a chance? He can always brief again, or you're going to give him a minute?
Dit was nog groter as 15. Yes, it's 20.
That would be below. Just because of the spacing, it's 20, but it was normally 15 pages, which is about a minute a page. So you should be fine for 10 minutes.
Ek het nou deur al die goed gegaan. Kon dit ek greet you all.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the 12th CIC. Without wasting any time, I will go straight into the presentation. And our president, Anthony Afodofe, will just come in to do the overview. First of all, I would just like to welcome all of the delegates. I would like to welcome our young professionals from the various universities and our panel members. We have Rob Skoji from Enza Construction. We have Prof. Tinus Maretz from JBCC. And then we have George from the University of Michigan, who is joining us for the session. And it is an honor for me to welcome the Minister of the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, Minister Patricia de Lille. It is indeed an honor to have you with us today. And without wasting any further time, I will then jump straight into the presentation. So just for the benefit of those that do not understand the operational environment, in terms of our structure, we have the Minister of Public Works, and then we have the CBE, which is a Council for the Built Environment. Alongside that, we have the 6 built environment councils that are reporting to the Minister of Public Works through the CBE. We have the South African Council for Property Valuing Professions. We have the quantity surveyors, the landscape architects, engineering council, architectural profession, and also we have the SACPCMP, the South African Council for the Project and Construction Management Professions. All of these councils did exist prior 1994, but the landscape architects were part of the architectural profession. So the two brand new ones, as they are termed in the industry, is your SACPCMP and the landscape architects. Now the SACPCMP, if you are an architect, engineer, or quantity surveyor, the moment you go into project and construction management, you have to register with the SACPCMP. So it's the only council then that would have that dual registration. And the same goes for the VAs. Now we as the ACPM, we are accredited by the SACPCMP as a voluntary association. The ACPM was established in 1998 and has been very instrumental in the establishment of the SACPCMP as a council. So we look at three aspects when it comes to our value proposition. We're looking to transform the industry, meaning we want to be an industry leader in the transformation of the industry towards a highly skilled, competent, and efficient and inclusive construction project management profession. In terms of sustaining the profession, we want to be a voice that advances and promotes recognition of CPM expertise. Hence, you are seeing platform like this. And then also in terms of being the go-to organization when it comes to project and construction management. Quickly, in terms of our membership categories, we have student members from all of the various universities that offer project and construction management, and they become members at no cost. And then we have associate, affiliate, and full members who are individual members, obviously at a cost. And then we have honorary members. Honorary members are those that have retired and are no longer practicing. They are also part of our membership because then they help us to do mentorship when it comes to our associate member and our student members, and they also join at no cost. Just quick in terms of the landscape of our corporate members, we have full corporate members where at least 50% of the directors, which means is two, should be full members registered with the SACPCMP, full members of the ACPM. And then in terms of our transformation agenda, we've also then looked at associate corporate member. It will be having one director that is at least registered with the ACPM and the SACPCMP. That is just the areas in which our corporate members work in: retail, commercial, institution, education, health, residential, and so on. And then obviously we look at the skill set, and our members have got offices as well outside of South Africa, out of the borders. That is in a nutshell, just summary of the work done by our corporate members, where we look at the number of projects that they are doing, the value, projects that are under construction, the square meters involved, and obviously projects at design stage. Those are the stats that we had from last year, but obviously the picture now has been affected with what we're finding ourselves in. These are our partners where we work together on various aspects. I wouldn't touch on what we are doing with the department. I am sure the minister would be able to touch on that. And then we have University of Johannesburg, which is our research partner through Karimbe. We are working with other associations as well, but just to also indicate from an international point of view, we have the partnership with the ICPMA and then the CIOB, which is a Chartered Institute of Building. And we are working with Swaziland as well, which is a similar council in Swaziland like the CPE. Coming into the construction industry conversation, all of our CICs are validated for 3 CPD hours, category A. And then I wouldn't go into the aims and the objectives, but it is to bring stakeholders together to ensure that we engage on those aspects that threaten or enhances the profession. And it is not just dialogues for the sake of dialogues. You can look when it comes to the partnerships that we have. Having mentioned that we have Wits University, we do write up what comes out and we do engage the various departments and other legislative authorities, because we do hope that the engagements that we have here will then impact the legislative issues when it comes to those that are charged in doing that. And then in terms of the CICs that we have had to date, we've had the face-to-face ones, we've had about 8. So we had 6 having started in 2018. The first one that we had this year that we did in collaboration with the CBE, where we were looking at how to build technical capacity for government. We did that in February, and we were honored again by the Deputy Minister of Public Works. The discussions that we had there and the technical paper that came out from those discussions, we did send to the department. It was requested to say that they also needed to give that report to Parliament. So it is not just conversations for the sake of conversation. The last face-to-face engagement that we had was with the CIOB and the Central University of Technology, because from time to time, we want to make sure that we are part of building the skills pipeline when it comes to candidates. Just on the web series, we have looked at all of the 6 project stages. We are today busy with stage 5. So all of the other previous stages, those conversations are available on our CPD portal, together with what we'll be having today is available on the CPD portal. And for today, we are broadcasting live, but the session will be closed again after the minister's keynote address. So on the previous conversations that we've had, the 8 CICs, those were our partnering organization, meaning it is the participants were from those organizations. You will see the 8th one, we had Growth Point, VNA, Claire Deacon and Associates. Our 9th CIC, we had MACE, we had NetBank and the Association of Quantity Surveyors. On our 10th CIC, that was 30 July, we had the SACPCMP, Osman Langer, Architects, Proficam, KMH Architects and ComSef. And then on the 11th one, we had Qual Consulting QS, we had IDMSC Consulting. We also had the Urban Real Estate Research Unit housed at UCT. Just quickly also about our upcoming CICs. This being Women's Month, we do have on the 31st of August, we have a CIC that will look at gender diversity policies and practices in the construction industry. It is proudly sponsored by VNA and Sanlam, and because it is Women's Month, the sponsors, we will be giving away those 2 books because our keynote address is the CEO of Prasa, Nosipho Siwisa Damasane, Prasa Rail. So that is what we are having for the women. The first 100 to register, you get to choose from any of those books. Then we have another CIC because health and safety has really become one of the prominent things that we need to do now, being faced with what we are faced with. So together with the Department of Employment and Labor, we will be looking at obligations of project managers in implementing COVID-19 health and safety regulations. That CIC is also validated for 3 hours, and that one will be free of charge. Continuing, the 10, we have 2 sessions when it comes to the recommended guideline professional fees. We know that we've had that as an issue for quite a while. So we will be having our first session, 10th of September. We are going to look at how the added scope of services and compliance to additional regulations affect the fees for CPM. And then the second session, we will be looking at the review of the tariff of fees to accommodate the increase in the scope of work as pronounced in various legislative arrangements. You will know that in terms of the SACPCMP, the last gazette that they did in terms of the tariff of fees, it was in 2011 because we had those ongoing discussions through the CBE and the Department of Public Works as well with the Competition Commission. Now, last year, 2019, they did gazette, but you will realize that it was just an interim adjustment because there has been no gazetted fees since 2011. So that is the review that we'll be looking at, and that we'll be doing together with the SACPCMP, and we've also invited the Competition Commission. And for our young professionals, as we said, we are concerned with growing the skills pipeline. We have been sponsored by Sanlam again. We are doing this together with the Central University of Technology, and then it will be for our young professionals. The biggest issue being, given what is required for the students to graduate is that they need hours of work on site. But now due to the COVID-19 requirements, 2 of the universities have now said when the students participate in the seminars and these sessions, then that is part of their work-based learning that they can include to ensure that they are able to graduate. So it is in the light of that we look for sponsorships as well when it comes to our students, which we have about 100 represented here only for today. And just to also mention what we also do, we have the Excellence Awards. When it comes to Excellence Awards, we invite our corporate members to enter those projects that they would say display excellence, and it has to fulfill a certain criteria. But also just to mention what is new is that we have expanded the recognition of projects to be both for the public and the private sector. For all of these years, for about 18 years, we've just been doing the private sector, but now we have included the public sector, but it will be those projects that have been implemented by our corporate members, both the full corporate members and the associate corporate members. Just an outline, we look at stakeholder management from in terms of communities, government authorities, funders, clients, owners, users, and tenants. We look at the social impact management. We look at technical and design management. We look at the scope, the complexity, the innovation, financial viability, cost effectiveness, unique characteristics. So there's a certain criteria that they fulfill. In 2018, we had our award winners. I wouldn't go back to all of the years, but just to show you the kind of projects that we look at. Our national award winner in 2018 was Profica, with that old mutual building in Sandton. And then our international award winner was CIC Africa, as we indicated that our corporate members operate also out of South Africa. So in terms of our awards, we also look at that. Then in 2019, the award winner again was CIC Africa 335 place in Accra, Ghana. And then our national award winner was MDA for the Junction Mall Philippi in the Western Cape. So I am showing those projects just so that you can look at the kind of scope that we look at. That is why we are saying now we will be including the public sector as well, because we do have our corporates that are doing quite a lot of work in the public sector. Now coming to the 2020 submissions, 2020 has been a very special year. We will soon then be announcing the approach to our corporate members in terms of the 2020 submissions. So we are also going to have our Excellence Award. I wouldn't want to waste time when it comes to the CPD. I think by now we have looked at that quite a lot, but I would rather then jump straight into introducing the minister so that the minister can then talk to us. So just a quick introduction. Minister Patricia de Lille was appointed as the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure by President Cyril Ramaphosa in May 2019. Minister de Lille is a seasoned politician and public servant and has served in all three spheres of government since the first democratic parliament in 1994. She has been fighting injustice for more than 45 years and was part of the team which led the constitutional negotiations and the team who drafted South Africa's constitution. Minister de Lille served as the mayor of Cape Town for 7 years, where accountability and clean governance were the cornerstones of her term. She spearheaded progressive projects such as using infrastructure investment as a lever to spur economic growth, developed the transit-oriented development strategy, and many other redress projects such as restitution to reverse the legacy of apartheid special planning. Lastly, in her latest role as the Minister of DPWI, her focus is to drive spatial and environmental justice and equality, to clamp down on corruption and ensure that public land and public buildings are used for public good. Her focus is also to drive infrastructure implementation as part of government economic recovery plan in a manner that will create the conditions for private sector to contribute to the economic growth and create the much needed jobs for the people of South Africa. And then with those words, Minister, I would love to hand over to you and welcome you once more. Thank you, Minister. Over to you.
Thank you very much, my sister. You should have been a politician. You can speak very well and fast. To all the delegates and colleagues, I greet you warmly, the President of ACPM, our CEO Nomvula, and the EXCO members. I really want to start by thanking you for assisting us during the COVID-19 fight against the virus. where you voluntary, real patriots came forward and assisted us to do assessment on many of our facilities that we have used as quarantine sites. So thank you very much for your contribution in the fight against COVID-19. To all the other delegates, researchers, everybody on board today, but I do want to say a special welcome to Professor George Burkham from Mexican University, and then also a special welcome and greetings to the young professionals from the various universities. It is a great pleasure for me to join you today. It's all the as important stakeholders in the built environment to share information with you, to also learn from you and also seek counsel and advice. As government, we must never claim that we know all the answers. So we all know that our country is in a recession of enormous proportion. And COVID-19 has further exacerbated the challenges faced in our economy. And as members of the built environment, and especially the construction industry, you know firsthand what a difficult time this has been. But we must begin to work together to rebuild our economy, and particularly the infrastructure sector. So on Wednesday, the 27th of May, Cabinet approved South Africa's infrastructure investment plan, which forms part of the overall economic recovery plan. And this plan gives life to the national key priorities as announced by the President in the State of the Nation commitment. But it's a plan that focuses on implementation in the immediately and the medium term and long term, across all sectors within the infrastructure field. And the sectors and industries include energy, water and sanitation, digital infrastructure and transport, as well as human settlements and agriculture and agri-processing. So this plan demonstrates government's strategy to respond to the economic crisis. The infrastructure investment plan is purpose-driven and is focused on infrastructure implementation and investment across its life cycle. And the purpose of the plan is also to give focus to government activities for economic recovery and jobs, and to also to reunite our country around a common set of easily understood goals within the spirit of the National Development Plan. Now, for those of us who've been involved in the built environment, including contractors and built environment professionals, the public and private sector, it is important that we engage and partner to address the systemic issues in the built environment, which primarily focus on transformation and job creation, focus on dealing with corruption and social facilitation. In May last year, after the elections in our sixth administration, the government was reconfigured, and the Department of Infrastructure was added to the Department of Public Works. So for the first time now, we have got an infrastructure department, and the purpose really was to deal with fragmentation within the infrastructure industry. And then following that new mandate, in November of 2019, Dr. Kgotsienso Ramokgopa was appointed in the presidency to be responsible for infrastructure and investment. And since that time, we have been working together to find a new way of dealing with infrastructure, where we can assess the shortcomings of infrastructure delivery in the past, and also look how we can take infrastructure delivery on a new trajectory, where we get things to be done and things to be implemented. So we started by going across the country and engaging with all three spheres of government: national, provincial, local, state-owned entities, to find out what infrastructure projects they have in their systems. And through this process, we collected about 276 projects from all over the country. And then we put these projects through an assessment to see if they are bankable, are they ready for implementation, and also to determine whether feasibility studies has been done on these projects. So once we pulled all the infrastructure projects in the country together, the public and private sector then work together to see how we can improve on the implementation of infrastructures projects from the onset. Now, to deal with also the infrastructure backlog in our country, we are very clear that government cannot do it alone. So on the 18th of February, also in 2020, President Cyril Ramaphosa convened a meeting with the chief executive officers of commercial banks and leaders of multilateral development finance institutions, also just to assess progress and efforts to intensify infrastructure investment. So the discussions were also aimed at identifying urgent reforms which needed to be implemented to revive infrastructure investment. So at this meeting, that was also held in preparation for a symposium that was held on the 23rd of June, numerous issues were raised in that meeting. The first one, the need for a credible project pipeline of infrastructure projects that are ready and bankable for investment and implementation. Also, the need for a comprehensive, focused infrastructure plan, and the need also to address fragmentation and infrastructure delivery. So where are we now? And so now people will also ask now, so what is different? Now, following that meeting with the private sector in February, Dr. Ramaphosa and myself embarked on an extensive consultation process. And through that, we then developed a new methodology of planning and project preparation. Because if you plan the same way, you get out to the same result. So what will also be different now is that there is now a single entry point for all infrastructure projects across the country. And we have created a structure called Infrastructure South Africa, which is part of the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. And so the new methodology that we have developed, known as the Sustainable Infrastructure Development System, CIC methodology. And then I will share with you what makes this new methodology, the CIC methodology, different. Is that it ensures that the infrastructure development is not merely undertaken in a transactional manner, which is where we have fallen short over many, many years. The CIC methodology relates to the identification, the consideration, evaluation, approval, and implementation of workable infrastructure in order to ensure that all projects are bankable and implementable. So such evaluation is necessary to ensure that the projects are functional from a financial, intersectoral, and also a needs perspective. So the methodology complements and reinforces the requirements for infrastructure development as envisaged in the Infrastructure Development Act which in itself is a lever at our disposal to achieve our infrastructure developmental goals and focus on prioritized implementation. So the CITS methodology specifically also focus on how the projects and programs address spatial inclusivity and transformation. So projects and programs are assessed also in terms of how they will advance the national development goals, in particular the National Development Plan, the 7 key priorities of government, the African Union 2063 plan, and all the commitments made in the State of the Nation address. So the CITS methodology also places emphasis on skills development, training and education, especially for historically disadvantaged persons and communities, women, youth, and people with disabilities. So in DPWI, we are now putting together a database of the skills and capacity that we currently have in our country. So we have developed a database of young unemployed professionals, retired professionals, so that we can pull together all the skills that we have in our country for the implementation of the infrastructure plan. The CITS methodology also ensures that projects are evaluated within their sectors and are assessed in accordance with the regional and district service delivery model, considering the needs and the socioeconomic environment and intersector viability. So the last step in our new CITS methodology is to determine the infrastructure value chain of the project. What are the costs and benefits and financial aspects, including the financial viability. So the comprehensive CITS methodology has now been applied to the initial 276 infrastructure projects that we have collected all over the country. And only 55 of those projects and what I call 12 special projects were found to be compliant with our new methodology. So we divided the 55 projects and the 12 special projects into 6 sectors, namely water and sanitation, energy, transport, digital infrastructure, agriculture, and agro-processing, and also the human settlements sectors. Now, it must be noted that these projects will be implemented over a number of financial years, but they will be implemented. So all these sectors then can respond to the social imperative to bring about significant job creation and transformation. In addition, we have identified also several labor-intensive public programs, mass public programs that will see to the building of rural roads, the building of bridges, especially in the rural areas where our children have to cross a bridge to go to school on a daily basis. We also look at mass employment programs to clean our towns and cities and our townships. And when we now speak of infrastructure, it cuts across the entire life cycle. We're no longer only talking about new construction, but we're also talking about maintenance and repairs and the upgrading of our existing infrastructure. Another area that we have not done so well over the years, and there's a great need for maintenance and upgrading of existing infrastructure. They will also now put a greater emphasis on project preparation and project management to ensure that we get implementation right the first time. By doing proper project preparation, we will be able to de-risk these big infrastructure projects right up front. So we will be investing a lot of money into project preparation to ensure that we start from the onset to do things right. What we simply cannot continue with anymore in our country is bad project preparation and have the project cost double, the time double, the money double, and then some of them not even completed. So this is where project preparation is going to assist us to de-risk all of these projects. So where are we now? Since the 23rd of June, when the president convened a symposium, we have now taken 50 of the 55 projects that are ready, that we have assessed, that we have verified, and 12 special projects, and we have gazetted them in a government gazette on the 24th of July this year. Now, in terms of the Gazette and in terms of the Infrastructure Development Act, we will now be able to prioritize the implementation of these projects by gazetting them, and so that we can also make sure that, you know, as part of the infrastructure plan, everybody will know exactly what is contained in this government plan. But key on all of these projects is that we want to address apartheid spatial planning, and we want to address transformation. So secondly, also in the built environment sector is the socioeconomic transformation of both professional service providers and contractors by allowing a positive bias towards historically disadvantaged persons, like I said, women and youth and people with disabilities. Now, one of the mechanisms that we've also built into the process and into the plan is to refocus the procurement processes towards achieving these goals. And as you all know, there's currently a new procurement bill out for public participation, and we've also made input there. Thirdly, the plan we want the plan to realize decent employment opportunities through their delivery strategies, focus on labor-intensive methods that can draw on new technologies, innovation. Our existing extended public works program must be coupled with training and education. And also we need to look at local contractor development. So a key focus in this plan for me is the special projects that have been gazetted, as has been gazetted. But that before we roll out these special projects, what is being missing in the whole value chain of infrastructure is social facilitation. We need to consult with our communities who will be the beneficiaries of these plans, of these projects, and make sure that they take ownership of these projects right from the onset. So just some of the other special projects, like I said, the rural bridges, the rural roads, the comprehensive urban management plan by cleaning our towns and cities. And then also another special project is the digitization of government. We still work out of brown files, and we can create a lot of jobs by getting our young professionals to begin to digitize government departments like health, our clinics, and all of that. Another one is the upgrading of our township roads. I'm sure many of you will see, have seen the condition of many of our townships roads. And then another program is very special to me, is that the project where we are going to start with PV, photovoltaic, and water savings in government buildings. We're going to start in Pretoria, where we're going to fit all government buildings with PV. We're going to make sure that we put in water saving devices. And that in itself will create a new industry within South Africa. Another one is the alien vegetation. You know, we are a country that's prone to a lot of droughts, and therefore we need to also clean our water dams and remove all the alien vegetation from there. And then also we want to do a solar water initiative that will include also for bonded houses and not just for economic houses. A big program that we must now really and has put as a priority is the issue of the student accommodation program. There's a big shortage of student accommodation. And then the South Africa Connect Phase 1B program. And then lastly, we've got what Salvokop Precinct project in Pretoria, where we are going to build headquarters for government departments. And we've already registered 3 public-private partnerships with National Treasury. And all of the special projects have been submitted to funding from what we call the Presidential Public Employment Program Fund, and about 9 billion rand has been allocated for these labor-intensive public employment programs. And we think together we can realize 75,000 jobs, utilizing the district development model. We've got 44 districts in our country and 8 metropolitans. So we need to cover all of those districts. And then, of course, as I said, we will do social facilitation so that we work and build together with our communities. Now, what we also have to overcome is that the problem that the binding constraint on public, the problem of binding constraint on public infrastructure is not finance. It is the institutional collapse and regulatory failure and investment spending that have not been well managed, which has led to massive leakages in the system. Now, through Infrastructure South Africa, we will be doing infrastructure differently by improving project management, by empowering Infrastructure South Africa to overcome policy blockages in various departments, and to also manage the expanded use of public-private partnerships in infrastructure. Only 2% of our infrastructure projects in our country has been through the method of public-private partnerships, and we need to improve there. But we also need to look at other methodologies like build, operate, and transfer, build, own, operate, and transfer. We want to bring those methodologies also through the implementation of the infrastructure plan. Then, now, we believe that once confidence is restored, public financing can crowd in the private capital investment. We want to see that crowding in effect by the private sector. Also, once confidence is restored, we can place emphasis on the quality of service delivery and the deployment of localized labor-intensive methods. And all of the above that I've mentioned speaks to only 4 key missions, and that is 1, improved infrastructure delivery; 2, mass employment interventions; 3, localization, industrialization, and also African integration, especially within the SADC region; and 4 is the green stimulus and the just transition from fossil fuel to renewable energies. So that can sum up the priorities that we want to push through this plan. Lastly, colleagues and friends, is what has almost become a second pandemic in our country, and that is corruption. And corruption is rife in the built environment. We have had high levels of corruption and mismanagement in government and state-owned entities. A key result of this has been low levels of new investment into the government sector. This has also reduced confidence levels, leading to extremely low levels of private sector investment as well. Now, to regain the confidence of society, to regain the confidence of investors, we must now show that government is capable of turning the economy around. We need to hold the corrupt and the delinquent visibly accountable. We need to commit and prioritize government resources carefully towards health and other important infrastructure in the economic recovery strategy that can create more jobs. And the one idea in government, which is to go back to zero-based budgeting as from next year, and it will also include a gender bias within our budgeting process, is certainly most welcome, so that we prioritize our spending to where it is needed most. So corruption has caused a great trust deficit between the public and the private sector. So we must put all measures in place to mitigate against this in implementing this infrastructure plan. So what are we doing? We are working on a more effective system to monitor projects and put systems in place that can detect and prevent corruption. So in this regard, the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, we have briefed our internal auditors to undertake a task of due diligence across the infrastructure value chain with the aim of detecting and preventing corruption, as well as are we or will we get value for money. And I believe that this will bring greater transparency. It will also give credibility to the work that we are doing, because transparency is the best deterrent to corruption. So looking forward, we need to have all hands on deck, and we need the private sector's help to root out corruption. Because if we don't fight this together, we will all sink together. I lastly want to speak about the 3 types of the funding mechanism that we are using. There are 3 types of financial categories of infrastructure projects, namely 1, those projects that will be funded by the fiscus, as I've mentioned, and those projects that require blended financing, and those that are purely funded by the private sector investment. So what have we done? We have taken these 55 projects and 12 special projects, and we did a pitching sessions to a number of commercial banks, international banks, financial institutions from across the world. So we took these projects and we pitched it to them. And out of these pitching sections, whereby investors were able to look at what they are interested in to fund and to invest, we have received a commitment of 340 billion rand of private sector investment, which we are now busy with to secure this funding against the specific projects that investors want to fund. We will all know about the infrastructure fund that was announced by the president in 2018. We have finally established the fund. It's now operational. We have signed a memorandum of agreement with National Treasury, with the Development Bank of Southern Africa on the 17th of August last week. And so now the fund is operational. And as you know, government has committed 100 billion rand to this fund. And so it will help that government can also lead by investing in infrastructure, creating the conditions conducive for the private sector to invest. And the infrastructure investment plan has now not only introduced the single entry point for infrastructure, along with the development of a project pipeline, we have created what is known Infrastructure South Africa. Then we have now also introduced a mechanism to ensure that we prioritize implementation in the immediately, medium term, and long term. So in this context, the partnership between the public and private sector is important, especially when it comes to implementing fit-for-purpose projects. Lastly, colleagues, I want to call on all of you. Let us work together to rebuild our country. Let us work together to create the much needed jobs in our country that can take our country forward. I want to wish you well in your discussions today. And when we all leave from here today, we must be ready to walk the talk. Stop talking, we need to walk the talk. And I'm certainly very excited about the infrastructure plan. So let's go out and do it. That's all that South Africans are expecting from us. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm sure this is not going to be the first time. I am committed to come back to give progress reports to all the stakeholders in the built environment. I have to give a progress report to Cabinet every 4 months. And I am committed to be as transparent as possible, but also to get ideas. We need to do it right the first time. We have to look at tried and tested methodologies that have worked here in South Africa and in the rest of the world. And I'm very confident. I love my country. I'm a patriot and I want to see my country succeed. Thank you very, very much for the opportunity and God bless.
Honorable Minister Patricia de Lille would like to take this opportunity. I just want to recap a couple of issues that you've raised. You spoke highly of skills and training within the industry. You spoke about social participation, big issues, job creation, women, youth, and disability issues. Transformation, still a key issue within our industry. Socioeconomic development. You spoke about the EPWP, labor-intensive processes and opportunities. Maintenance and facilities of existing facilities that you have. The procurement bill that is out. And then the big topic which affects us is project management as a whole within the built environment. And I think this is where our focus is as the Association of Construction Project Managers, to put ourselves as leaders, thought leaders within our industry, to be able to afford government the opportunity to bring all these culminations that you're talking about. So with that said, we would like to have a further discussion as the association with yourselves to see in what formats we can form relationships to be able to assist, starting probably with yourselves as Public Works, to be able then to input and give ideas on how we can work around the procurement issues to be able to then become effective to government as private sector consulting environment. So with that little said, would like to thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and grace our platform. We appreciate the work you're doing for the government and as a country as a whole. And we wish you well on your journey in politics and lifting this nation up. And from the Association of Project Managers, would like to say a big thank you and go well. We will be in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President. There's just one issue that I forgot to mention because I've just put out the advertisement today. And that is that I put out an advertisement to put together a technical advisory panel consisting with all the sectors and the professionals within the built environment. And that technical advisory panel will be able not only to have oversight over the rollout of the infrastructure plan, but will also assist us to make sure that we do implement it. So please look out for the advertisement. It is on social media. And I want to ask people that qualify to please apply. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. We thank you for your input and your keynote address. I think it is very valued. Minister, you will see there's various questions on the Q&A. If you can answer some of them directly, or else we will get to them later in the session. But without delaying the session any further, I'd like to go into our introduction of the session. Thank you, Nomvula, and President of the ACPM, Anthony, for the introductions and for the gratitude to the Minister for making the time today. Without further discussion on the questions, let me move on by introducing the session. This is the 12th Construction Industry Conversations hosted by the ACPM. The topic for today is the impact of COVID-19 on construction contracts and supply chain practices during the construction stage. Across the construction industry, supply chains have already been exposed to significant risks that will need to be effectively managed, monitored, and mitigated to ensure that we have a sustainable industry in the short, medium to long term. The need to comply with social distancing measures is placing significant constraints on those sites that have had limited space. Contractors are already making changes to their canteens, toilets, changing facilities to maintain the 2-meter distance rule. It is therefore important that PRCPMs, registered project managers, can advise their clients on best approach of dealing with contractual risks associated with the COVID-19 pandemic against the risk-adjusted strategy within the construction site. This includes understanding how productivity will be affected, new payment practices to ensure cash flow is maintained, understanding material prices, changes and supply, and the preliminary cost sharing. Professional project managers will also be important to further our understanding of what construction firms would do to enhance chances of success at stage 5 when running COVID-19 risk-adjusted construction sites. So with that said, as an introduction to our session, I'd like to inform you of the speakers today. We have Professor George Berghorn from Michigan State University, who is a guest speaker who will do the first presentation. Thereafter, we will run a poll. And then we have Rob Scorgi, Commercial Director of INZA Construction. And thereafter, we have Professor Tienes Meritz, who is from the JBCC, the acting CEO. So let me introduce you to Professor George Berghorn, Assistant Professor of Construction Management, School of Planning, Design and Construction. He is the Adjunct Assistant Professor of Forestry at the Michigan State University. If I could hand over to you, George. George, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, good to go. You can put up your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you very much for that introduction. And it is indeed an honor to be here with you all this afternoon. So I'm going to speak to you today a little bit about some perspectives that we've developed at Michigan State University about Construction 4.0 and how it impacts two fields that are near and dear to my heart, which are mass timber and dome ecology, which is probably a